afternoon, everyone. I, Dr. Purnima Madan, on behalf of Lloyd Business School, welcome our eminent speaker, Ms Shafali Singh, Business Change and Agility Manager, Accenture, all my faculty colleagues and all the students who have joined the webinar today. Lloyd Business School constantly strives to build knowledge for its young managers by bringing industry expertise to classroom learning in order to bridge the gap between academia and industry requirements. In order to embrace the future managers with the latest developments in the corporate world, Lloyd Business School has taken the initiative to conduct the Expert Talk series based on the theme Enhancing Employability Skills for Budding Managers. And today we are having the second expert talk on reducing resistance to change for professional success. Without much ado, I would like to introduce our guest. We are honored to have with us Ms Shafali Singh, who has 14 years of rich experience in leading human-centric business transformations across geographies, industries, and client contexts like mergers and acquisitions, talent transformation, workforce skilling, platform implementation, journey to cloud, digital, and IT implementations. Her core skills and areas include driving behavior-based change, design thinking, stakeholder management, and communications. Ma'am is an IT engineer and along holds a master's in business administration from ICFI. In the past few years, she has been deeply invested in the area of cybersecurity to create human-centric solutions to tackle human vulnerabilities. She's a trained facilitator for managing client relationships and facilitates these sessions for the teams within her organization. And she is also a certified pranic healer and an avid traveler who loves to explore new grounds. I welcome you, ma'am, and I will now hand over the session to you. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining with me today. And I'm very passionate about the topic that we are going to talk about today, which is reducing resistance to change. And as Dr. Purnima mentioned, that this is my area of expertise as well in terms of managing business change and transformation projects. So I would like to quickly introduce myself before getting into the topic. And Dr. Purnima has kindly done that job already for me. So I'll just take a quick minute to talk about it, just kind of highlighting that I have been fortunate enough to have had very myriad of experiences across different transformations, helping our people across all the human-centered change across mergers and acquisitions, programs like IT implementations, or programs wherein there are large complex platform or cloud implementations. So it has been a very fortunate experience for me to really kind of help our organizations, consult them in driving those human-centered change across these years through Accenture. Like Dr. Purnima mentioned, I'm also a certified pranic healer. I enjoy traveling, reading, and also spending a lot of time with my 6-year-old. Here you will also see a lot of logos that I have kind of added in terms of the various Fortune 500 organizations that I have had an opportunity to work with. Now, quickly just talking about resistance to change. So I feel change is completely inevitable, right? More so it's not really something that has happened today, but it has been there since eons. So let me just quickly share this video with you and gather your thoughts in terms of what you really think is happening here.
Shafali ma'am, the video doesn't have the voice, so it's not audible.
Yeah, the voice is not there. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So let me just quickly take a second just to kind of understand what you all think is happening here. And if you could just type in the chat window and just share whatever you think just happened in this video. Yeah, so I am looking at the chat as well. So yeah, they had an easy option as a lighter, but they did not really know how to use it. So absolutely a waste of effort. Absolutely not accepting and understanding change. They do not want to adapt to the change. Well, bang on. I think you are all absolutely right in terms of mentioning what the problem is, right? The person is not really accepting the change. Why? Let's just, for the matter of getting to understand this better, let's just say that Tom is the person who was trying to introduce these new technologies to this person who's a caveman, Jim. So Tom had all the intentions of sharing the new technology, the new innovations with Jim, right? While Jim is a Stone Age man, he's trying to build everything with stone. And he doesn't really know about the latest inventions. But the problem here is that Jim was actually trying to share new stuff with him without actually giving out any details, without kind of sharing any information. So it was just something that was shared with that person, just kept right in front of him without any details at all. So there was a complete lack of communication. There was a complete lack of informing the person about what really this innovation or this technology will help him in future. So yeah, of course, change is inevitable, but then of course you have to have the right ways of introducing the change. So now just talking about why, what do we really think about, why do really people change? Is there a way to remove this from here? Okay, never mind. Is my
Um,
screen clearly visible?
yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Okay, perfect. All right. So why do people really resist change? It's basically for the three reasons that I have kind of listed down here. One is definitely afraid to leave the comfort zone. So what we saw here was that while Tom really had all the right intentions to introduce the new concept, but Jim was not kind of grasping those because he was comfortably working with his Stone Age stuff. He did not really want to get into the details of what exactly this is because he was happy doing the things that he was doing in his old ways of working. So there was no, uh, absolutely no intention for him to move towards the new ways of working. So there is a complete lack of moving towards getting out of your comfort zone. The second is, of course, lack and loss of fear of control, because again, you really fear the unknown. You do not know what lies ahead of you, right? So you are in control, in charge right now, and you want to kind of understand the situation, be in that situation in a way where you feel the control of that situation. But when you really are not able to understand what is in store for you, you do not see the benefits, you do not see how it will be used, you do not really know whether if you use a new thing, will it work for you, will it be more problematic for you, or how will you really go about it. So you are completely resisting the change again because there is a lack of control. And then the third and the most important is that you do not really understand what's in it for me, right? You do not understand what are the benefits that you will derive out of that change. So let's say, for example, let me just give you a very simple example here. Let's say you have had a very tough week at your college where you've had a very challenging project and you've done multiple assignments and things in the college. And by the end of the week, you are really looking forward to the weekend. where you want to just kind of relax and spend time at home, just chill. But then when you actually reach back home on Friday evening, you are extremely tired, you just want to crash, and you go to bed, have your dinner, and go to bed. Early morning on Saturday, you just end up checking your emails. And when you are checking your emails, you realize that there is an email that has come up from the college, which asks you to report at the college at around 12. And then you get a little agitated, you are frustrated because you had some plans for the weekend, you wanted to be in the house, you wanted to go out with friends. There is a slight um, apprehension, there is a slight curiosity as well in terms of why is there a mail in your inbox asking you to come to college on a weekend when it was supposed to be your holiday. And there are so many other emotions that are running in your head, right from being agitated to curious to being grumpy as well, right? But when you reach the college, when you reach the reception of the college, there is a letter that is handed over to you. And when you start opening that letter and start reading through it, your attitude completely changes. You see that from being grumpy to you start eventually becoming more happy and excited, and you start really yelling with joy because you saw something which you were kind of expecting. So this is a letter for internship that you were expecting at a very coveted organization that you had applied for. So now in this situation, would you resist the change of not coming to the college on a weekend? Had you known what it was for, had you known that it had a benefit for you? So that's the reason why we say that it is important to really kind of understand what are the benefits and what's in it for me to be able to to be able to be resilient to change and adopt that change. I also saw a hand raising up. So if there is any question, I am happy to answer.
You
But
all are
if not,
requested to put your questions through chat.
yeah.
If
Good.
you have
And
questions,
we
please
will
put.
definitely have a dedicated time at the end to address all the questions. I kind of checked in because I saw a hand raised, but absolutely feel free to type in your questions in the chat box. All right. So talking more about it, we are in a VUCA world, and VUCA world is really volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. This is basically a terminology that is typically used in war times. And I like to use it here because what I feel is that since last 2 years, we've been in such a world where we have seen a lot of uncertainties. We've seen a lot of ambiguity with the whole pandemic and the virtual ways of working and whatnot happening in the last 2 years. So this actually kind of brought in a lot of changes for each one of us, whether it was a teacher, whether a student, whether a office employee, whether a person in the telecom industry or a bank. Everyone was forced to start work from home during those times. And that is when we kind of were approached by all the organizations to help them in the process of helping them digitize their work. And I am bringing up this example because I feel this is a very relatable example for each one of you to understand from the perspective of pandemic and how the different organizations went through the change curve in adapting and learning the entire new technologies, the new innovations, the new ways of working that they have not really done before. I really remember the time when the entire thing happened and it all started when all the organizations they wanted to move towards the digitized ways of working overnight. So they had contacted us and we started creating um, work streams for them. We started engaging with them. We started engaging with the leaders, the employees to understand better how we could consult them and drive those changes to work remotely. So this is an example of how we brought different organizations to start working virtually using the digital ways of working. Now you may ask that, how was it really possible? Because there were times that there were organizations which were completely paper based, and they wanted to move towards the digital ways of working, where you have to start working day in and day out on the digital platforms, on the collaborative platforms like Zoom, Teams, the channels that are there, the social platforms that are there within the organizations, where they start interacting with their colleagues without going to offices. So there were a lot of questions going in the minds of the leaders as well as the employees. So leaders were thinking more from the perspective of, will my employees be able to collaborate in the new ways of working, where we are not really seeing each other, where we are not going to the office and sitting side by side? How will I be able to measure the performance of my team, whether if they are working from home, are they really working? I am doubtful whether they are giving in their 100% or not. Will a remote working environment really kind of decrease the productivity of my employees and impact my business continuity, or maybe impact the client relationships that we have? And there were other thoughts like, how do I keep my team engaged during this time? Because people feel disconnected when you are working completely remotely from home. You are not really going to the office, not meeting people, not catching up. You feel disengaged, you feel disconnected. And then there were other thoughts like, how will I kind of upskill my people? How will they actually be able to understand the new digital technology, the new ways of working, where you need to be secured as well with your data? You need to work on these social platforms, and then also be able to work in a secured manner, because you are no longer going to an office location where everything is secured, but instead either you're working from home or maybe from outside, so connecting to different networks. So there were a lot of thoughts going in the minds of the leaders when we interacted with them. Similarly, when we started interacting with the employees in those organizations, they had a lot of different thoughts as well. They were more concerned about, how will I stay connected with my peers? How will I stay connected with my customer? In consulting, typically we go out and we consult going at the onshore, which is the on site location. We interact with the employees, we interact with the leadership, we interact with the people there, our stakeholders, and then we kind of help understand. But then again, for us also, it was all digital, all virtual. So similarly, they also had those apprehensions in mind, that how will they deliver for their own clients? How will they ensure that they are being productive? How will they manage work when there are people around in the house, there are kids around in the house working, and spouses are working in the same room? They have multiple calls to attend. The kids are running to them because they see them working from homes and they need the attention. So there were a lot of apprehensions, a lot of considerations, a lot of fears and anxieties in the mind of employees as well as the leaders. So we kind of then thought about, what is it that is most important to build resilience in these times, to be able to move to the digital ways of working? And we came up with three main criterias, where we had to sync it up to the key moments that mattered to the employees or the people in the organization, where we brought in the three important pivotal factors, which were, we wanted the leaders to really think about short term as well as long term strategy. So there were times when a few organizations kind of mentioned that they will go all out with work from home policy till an indefinite period, and they kind of also provided the right infrastructure, they provided the right setup for the employees to start working from home. I know for a fact that there were clients who had completely moved all these secured, so there are some projects that are secured within the organizations, which really have to be delivered from that secured location. But during those times, we saw people, the organizations, moving those secured projects as well to the homes of people, really kind of building those setups where people could really work from home and in a secured manner. So it was basically embracing the moment, the embracing the change, trying to adapt to it by thinking the short term as well as the long term strategy. And also, including people in the change. So creating transparent environment where you are honestly communicating about the challenges that you are facing as a leader as well. So you had to kind of interact with um, stakeholders on the ground, tell them honestly what is happening, why it is happening, communicate with them in the right manner. Also build a layer of trust across the organization where everyone believes in the leadership and kind of engages with them in the right way. So there were a lot of other anxieties and fears also happening at that time, where people were worried about job losses and the pay cuts as well. But then it was a complete prerogative of the leaders to create an environment of trust and build that relationship with their employees, to kind of include them in the entire process and help them also transition to the new ways of working easily. And the third was, of course, the resiliency with agility and speed. So that was to kind of ensure that there were operations that were happening, there were projects that were running, there were day in and day out work that was going, and they had to really kind of move the setup to the new ways of working. So they had to ensure that there was a continuity while also safeguarding and ensuring that there is no compromise on the project deliverables or the productivity or efficiency of people in the organization. So it all had to be done with agility, speed, and ensuring the right frame set, or the frame set of mind of people, and also the right kind of learnings embedded in it. Now, just kind of talking about how we kind of translated the entire scenario of moving to digital ways of working, and what were the different challenges like. So it was definitely adoption of the new technologies, the ways of working, where people had to start collaborating on different social platforms which were available within the organization, which earlier were not. So this was a new thing that was coming up. Added to that complexity of new technologies being introduced was another layer of multi-generational workforce, which typically exists in all the organizations. So there could be baby boomers who are from late 80s, 90s, who do not really know how to use these technologies, right? Versus the millennials who are always on the phone or always on the go, and they were quite equipped to accept that change. But we had to kind of layer in all these complexities to ensure that we were kind of building the interventions, building the entire plan according to all the different generational workforce that existed within the organization. Then there was also security matters that we had to kind of consider. We had to also think about the training requirements of the different set of stakeholders. Now, just talking about how we went about executing it, of course, preparation is the most important aspect of any project. So preparing people to kind of adopt to that change by providing them access to the tools, the assets, the the entire set of deliverables that you have created for them to start using. So that becomes like an important aspect, where you start preparing, where you start aligning with the leadership, where you start kind of ensuring that the leaders understand their responsibility to communicate well. So now, when they understand that they need to communicate with the employees to generate an awareness about what's happening, why it is happening, how it will happen, when will it happen. So it has to address to all the questions, and then finally transition into the new ways of working by upskilling them, by helping them out with the relevant learning modules, with the relevant communications, with the relevant skill sets that they need to have to be able to start working in the new ways of working. And then, of course, reinforcing those behaviors, tracking them, ensuring that the people are not really falling back on the old ways of working. So this is just like a very, and I'm just cognizant of the fact that we have less time. So I'm just kind of walking through this, but of course, I will ensure that we have some time to address any questions. And if you have any questions regarding what I'm sharing or anything else as well. So I just want to kind of show a journey here, which is of a sales representative. Again, it shows how we tackled the situation, how we did a lot of communications, we did a lot of learning, upskilling, small challenges that were run for these folks. So if you start seeing from top to bottom, you will see all the different kind of interventions that were planned for people across the levels within the sales representative of organization, and how they were engaged in to understand the change, to be made aware of the change, to learn about it, and to also start implementing it in their day to day lives. So it was more about how you can kind of build the entire journey for these people to understand the change, adopt to it, and then start using those changes eventually and the new ways of working. And then you kind of in the end also start recognizing the desired behaviors. So it had all the interventions, like we did virtual town halls, we did live events where we spoke about the new tools, the new platforms. We gave them some demos of the entire tool, how they could use it from their homes. They got the communication kits where they could actually start reading up, and they understood what the entire technology was, how they could start incorporating it when conversing with their clients and customers. Then they had all those learning programs where the learning journeys were created for them. They were supposed to attend a lot of virtual video calls. They were asked to always switch on their cameras. They had a few gamified learnings also, where we had kind of created short snippets of activities for them to go through the 30-day period, so that all these changes could be inculcated in them through a habitual way. So it is typically said that when you kind of work on something for 21 days at one stretch, it really becomes like a habit for you. So we started giving them short challenges to work through the 30 days to kind of adopt to the ways of working, where they had to work on the digital platforms, the collaborative ways of working, switching on their cameras or sharing on the collaborative platforms and things like that. And then we eventually kind of recognize their good behavior, the desired behaviors that we were expecting out of them. So now kind of just going back to what really it means for you as an individual. We saw that the organizations really take time to kind of prepare, and the leaders have to communicate and constantly communicate, and then they transition, upskill their employees, and then eventually the transformation happen where they have to kind of track those changes. They ensure that all those changes are adopted well, and then people are not going back to the old ways of working. But what it really means for you as an individual, I would say three things, three important things. That is, again, which is related to the example that I shared. So you start facing the current. So it is very important for each one of us to really understand what it is right now. So there could be a lot of skills that are required currently. For example, that I spoke about digitization, right? So a lot of you might eventually feel that technology is something that you do not want to go into because you are in the MBA field, right? And you are uh, in a you will be in a profession where you do not really need to know technologies, but of course you might go into a specific industry and you might need to understand the technicalities of that industry. You might have to understand the ways of working in that industry or in that organization. So you will have to constantly keep on upskilling yourself, which is the most important thing. So you have to understand the need of the hour. You have to create open and honest communications with your teachers, with your employers, with your family. And you have to understand what is it that you really need to grow as an individual. Anticipate what is it that you see in the future as upcoming technology, and or maybe an upcoming idea, innovation. Uh, there are talks of metaverse happening right now. So keep yourself updated in terms of what's happening in the industry, what's happening in the corporate. Metaverse is basically something where people are actually joining together in a virtual environment where they can interact with each other virtually. They have those personas that are created virtually. It's just basically like a 3D game, but where people actually get into the virtual world and start interacting there. So again, this is something that you might want to kind of learn about. So keep reading about things, keep learning, keep upskilling yourself, because depth of information is as important as breadth of experiences. So just focus on building deep, specialized knowledge and becoming super collaborators. And then, of course, keep finding ways to add value. So that value could be for your project teams or assignment teams that you will build up in the tenure of your MBA days, where you will work on different assignments. So how you can build and how you can find ways to add value through through your new skills that you have developed, or how you can actually bring those values back to your maybe internships, or future when you go to the organizations in the corporate world, how you can actually set goals for yourself. Always keep assessing where you are, where you would want to be. And instead of just kind of looking at the gap, start making small objectives around it. Start putting it in goals and what you really want to achieve in terms of if there is a particular technology that you're interested in learning about. Pick that up, start learning about it, start taking courses around it, and then also set goals around it, that in maybe 6 months you want to be equipped to be able to create some kind of thought leadership around it, or maybe write a blog around it, write a article on your LinkedIn page around it. So things like that. And then of course keep tracking it as well, because we all fall prey to resisting change, right? And this is a change for us, a change of upskilling ourselves every single day. So keep tracking it and ensuring that whatever objectives and goals that you had set for yourself, you are achieving them. So I will just kind of close on here, and also aware that there are some questions in the chat window. I definitely want to kind of spend some more time on that as well.
Thank you so much, Shafali ma'am. I hope I am audible.
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay, so let me, put the questions to you, which the students are asking. We have a question by
Sure.
Ankit, and he says that can resistance to change really be avoided?
See, resistance to change can be avoided, but it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of effort. And like I mentioned, it takes a lot of communication as well. So if, let's say, if there is a situation wherein in an organization we are kind of ensuring, like I mentioned, the example of digitization, right? We were kind of enabling the employees of that organization to adopt to that change. People actually showed resistance to it. The resistance is unavoidable, but then you have to tackle around it. You have to ensure that you are communicating with them in the right way. You are showing the benefits to them. You are showing them what's in it for me. If I adopt to the new ways of working, how will my productivity increase? So that is what is the message that needs to go out to ensure that people are not resisting to it. They will initially resist. There is a learning curve, there is a change curve. So there has to be the change curve, and through that change curve, you will move them to awareness, to understanding, to actually adopting that change and working in the new ways.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving to the next question, which is again Ankit is asking, and he says, what is the common cause of employee resistance to change?
Well, like I mentioned in the start of the presentation itself as well, common factors for resisting a change is that you are not aware of it. You have not been told what it will bring to you as a person, as an individual. I know that a change in an organization is at a very high level. The leaders might be aligned. They would know the benefit of this. They know that benefit of implementing a digital platform within the organization will kind of increase my productivity or increase my employees' productivity, reduce the cost. So they will have those benefits in mind. But what really it implies for an individual, what really it implies for an analyst or a consultant or a manager working on the ground, how it really matters to them has to be kind of shared to ensure that they are not resisting to change. But then going back to the question of why the resistance comes, it is because people do not really like to leave their comfort zone. They do not want to um, come out of those comfort ways of working. They do not want to lose the control of what they have been doing in a certain way because they have mastered it. So they now will have to kind of change it to the new ways of working. They will have to learn new things. So that is the resistance where it is coming from, because they want to learn new things and they have to learn new things. That's what really they do not want to.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving to the next question. Rohan Agrawal, he's asking, do all change really takes you towards progress?
Well, honestly, it is really subjective. I would say changes are constant. Change is inevitable, but whether it is taking you forward or backward is completely dependent on the situation. But of course, if it is with the right intent, I would say that it is always for the good.
We have another question which says that, many people, by Alisha, and she says that, ma'am, people would resist for changing when they know that this is for their good. And then also they leave organizations and their comfort zone is good for them only. So why such things happen?
Absolutely. That's a very valid question and a good question. People do understand. For example, even I understand that change is good, right? I understand that the change of now going back to office because things are becoming normal, right? So I do understand that going back to office is good because I will start meeting my colleagues. I will start working in the normal ways of working, but still I'm resisting it. Why? Because I don't want to travel. I just don't want to spend 2 hours on the road stuck in traffic, right? I still do understand that it is good for me to really go to office and start working there, but I'm resisting to it. But then, of course, I will eventually accept to it, adopt to it, but I will take my own time. So that is the most important thing, where the organizations will have to reiterate the benefits. They will have to communicate, communicate, communicate. There is nothing else that you can do. So you have to communicate, you have to ensure your people understand the benefits that you are driving for them. And they understand that, and then eventually kind of build certain interventions or build certain mechanism where they can actually start adopting to it easily by helping them, by hand holding them, giving them some learnings around it, organizing sessions for them, enticing them to actually do it. So my organization is doing that. They are kind of arranging a lot of get-togethers. They are arranging a lot of lunches and dinners for enticing people to come to office now. So that's definitely helping, right? So that was just one change that I spoke about myself, but then there are many others as well, and then you have to kind of find the right set of activities that you can do to kind of help people resist, adopt to the changes and then kind of resist the barriers that they are foreseeing.
Thank you, ma'am. With your permission, I would like to take the last question if
Sure.
the time permits. Okay. So this question is from Anupama. She says, why resilience is important? Can it help in managing change?
Absolutely. So resilience, in my mind, is really the crux of how well you can adopt a change, how quickly you can adopt a change. So basically, being resilient really means that you are able to adopt to a change, not only adopt to it, but at a very fast pace. And because in organizations, changes are fast paced. So they have to be, so people have to be resilient to be able to adopt to those changes. It is an important aspect. And to build that, organizations are actually doing a lot of learnings around it. A lot of things are happening right now. The corporates are helping their people to build that resilience. They are helping people to take those coaching sessions, the guided workshops, which in a way help them build those skill sets accordingly, because these are very softer nuances of your skills. These are not hard coded skills or not functional skills, right? These are more softer aspects. So you need to be trained accordingly, coached accordingly to build the resilience.
Thank you so much, ma'am. With the permission, I would like to conclude the session.
Sure.
And I hope that today's expert talk series on reducing resistance to change for professional success will help you all gain knowledge about how to reduce resistance and augment your professional success. That will further facilitate in enhancing your employability skills. I would like to thank, on behalf of Lloyd Business School, our guest, Ms Shafali Singh, for taking out time from her busy schedule and guiding our students. Thank you, ma'am. And thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you very soon in another interesting session.
Thanks, Dr. Purnima. I do know that there were a lot of other questions as well. Please feel free to send those questions over to my email and I will kindly respond on each one of them. I
Absolutely.
do not want to
Sure.
disappoint anyone.
Sure,
And
ma'am.
thank you
I have
so
I've
much for
already
being a great
downloaded. Yes.
audience.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everyone.